Chapter 1. Secret Agent Jack Stalwart. The mission to find Max. The Stringer Hunt. Chapter 1. The Treasure Hunt. It was a Friday afternoon, and Jack Stalwart was riding with his fourth grade class in the lobby of the British Museum in London. Not only did the British Museum hold more than 1 million artifacts from the ancient world, it doesn't cost a thing to visit. Jack and his classmates were on a field trip studying its treasures. "Okay, everyone," said Jack's history teacher, Mr. Marshall, is handing out pieces of paper to each pupil. The museum has arranged a treasure hunt for us. Students cheered and clapped. "We're going to split into 6 teams," he said. "The first team to find all 13 objects wins a prize." Mr. Marshall organized his class into groups of 3. Luckily for Jack, he was paired up with 2 of the cleverest pupils in his class, his best friends, Richard and Charlie. "Let's crush 'em," said Richard. "Yeah," said Charlie. "They won't stand a chance." Mr. Marshall looked at his watch. "Time starts," said as he waited for the second hand to pass to 12. "Now," Jack, Richard, and Charlie quickly looked at the first clue on the paper. "Valuable key. Deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphic writing can be found in room 4. "What is it called?" "I know," said Charlie. So the other team couldn't hear. "It's the Rosetta Stone." Not having to find room 4 saved them some time. Jack scribbled the answer in the space next to question 1. The second clue, however, was much harder. Which island is famous for its stone statues called Moai? Can you find the answer in room 24? Jack, Richard, and Charlie looked at each other blankly. According to the map, room 24 was down on the corridor ahead, next to the bookshop. They raced for it, and when they got there, they saw an enormous stone statue with the face of a man. Underneath it was a sign that says, "Haka Nice statue from Mr. Island." Richard noticed a name Easter in the blank next to question 2. Charlie read the question 3 out loud. "In 31 BC, this emperor captured Egypt for the Romans. Who was he? Visit room 70 to find out." Fortunately, Jack didn't know much about Greek or Roman history. The junior crime-fighting agency that worked for the GPF had taught him many things, but most of it was practical stuff, like to know stop a bad guy from coming at you with a poison pan. He shrugged his shoulders at his friends and took the lead, climbing the stairs to the upper floor. When the boys got to room 70, they found themselves in the Roman Empire section. Perched on a pedestal in the middle of the room was a marble head of a man with glass eyes. The sign underneath said, "Augustus, who defeated Mark Antony in Cleopatra to claim Egypt for the Romans." "That's it," said Richard, scribbling down the name Augustus. The boys carried on scouring the museum and finding the answers to the next 9 questions. It took nearly 45 minutes, but finally they were standing at question 13. During mummification, ancient Egyptian embellers placed the organs of the deceased in canopy jars, which baboon-headed god jar contained the liver. You can find the answer in room 62. The trio went in a hurry now. There were at least 4 other groups nearby who were close to finishing the treasure hunt as well. Jack, Richard, and Charlie dashed up the steps to the 3rd floor. Out of breath, they frantically looked for the answer to the question, but there was nothing obvious. "Let's split up," said Charlie. "I'll look over here," pointing to the collection of tall glass cases. "You guys take the other side of the room." The boys separated. Soon Jack found himself gazing at treasures from the tombs of Egyptian kings. One of them glided chair from tomb to vertical Tutankhamun or King Tut. At the sight of that name, the hairs on Jack's arms stood up. Chapter 2. The Diadem. few months ago, Jack had received a note saying that his older brother Jack was in danger and that only Jack could save him from another peril he was in. As soon as Jack received the note, he had joined the secret agent organization his brother was working for, World Protection Force, or JPF, and set about trying to find clues about his brother's disappearance. JPF refused to tell Jack a thing, but on 2 previous missions, he had collected clues that pointed Max to being somewhere in Egypt. His brother had also sent him a coded typewritten note that Jack described towards Thebes and Tutankhamun. Jack knew that the Thebes was the ancient name for the city of Luxor in Egypt, and that Tutankhamun was the name for a famous boy king who had ruled Egypt from 1333 to 1324 BC. What he didn't understand was why his brother spelled King Tut's name with an O instead of the usual U, or why he had used an old-fashioned typewriter instead of a computer. Plus, what was Max doing in Egypt in the first place? Whatever the reason, Jack figured that Max's mission was important. After all, the GPF had faked a school in Switzerland for Max to go. In the history of the GPS, they only sent 3 agents, including Max, away from their families for an extended period of time. Mary Blitten had been sent to the Amazon rainforest to live with the natives and spy on the nasty oil companies that were making the water toxic and the villagers sick. The information she returned with 2 months later led to a lawsuit that had closed the companies down. Jeremy Bafford was sent to Bermuda Triangle to discover the whereabouts of mission ships. The trouble was still there because nobody had heard from him since. For everyone else, being away for a long time that wasn't necessary. The GPS could send you on a mission and return you to your home 1 minute after you left. Time traveling was a new way to keep kids happy and their parents in the dark. As soon as Max has left to school, GPS started sending notes from Max to Jack's parents. The letters were supposed to be in Max's handwriting, but Jack knew they hadn't been forgotten by now. The secretary to the director of the GPS. That's because Jack had changed the signature ID to identify her. The signature ID was a GPS gadget that used a worldwide database of handwriting samples. He also used a signature ID to confirm that Max and Nate had sent that coded note. Looking at King Tut's chair in the glass case, Jack started to wonder whether Max's mission had something to do with the treasures at King Tut. Maybe Max was protecting King Tut himself. Now that would be a mission for Jack. Unfortunately, the only way Jack was going to answer the question was to actually go to Egypt. He couldn't have willingly jumped on a plane. He didn't have enough money to buy a ticket, and he couldn't leave home without scaring his parents silly. He was going to have to wait till a stroke of luck opened the door of possibility. And a voice interrupted Jack's thought. "Find anything?" yelled Richard. "No," said Jack, "not yet." "Me neither," said Charlie from the other side of the room. Jack turned back to the glass case with the chair. Next to it was another case, containing 4 small jars. He walked over to it and noticed that there was a sign beside them. The jar of the baboon-headed god Happy contained the liver that was protected by goddess Nephthys. "Got something," Jack shouted to his friends. Richard and Charlie rushed over. "Brilliant," said Charlie, clapping his Jack on the back. Luckily wrote the answer Happy on the page. "You did it. Let's get going." Richard and Charlie started running as another group rushed out of the room too. Jack was about to join them when something to his right caught his attention. It was a photo on the wall, the crown with a vulture and cobra on the top. There was a story about it. Mystery of King Tut's diadem. King Tut was a powerful and influential Egyptian pharaoh. Lots of people worshipped him like a god. On many occasions, the young pharaoh wore jewelry and armlets to protect him and convey his power. None was more important than his diadem. diadem or crown. In fact, it was so important that he was buried with it on his head. The archaeologist Howard Carter discovered Ctets in 1922 and removed the diadem, but within days it had disappeared. It was thought to have been stolen by an assistant of Mr. Carter's, Mr. Omar Masari. This, however, has never been proven. Earlier this year, the diadem was found again and placed in care of the archaeologist Richard Newton. Shortly after, it vanished again. The location of the true power of King Tut's diadem is one of the greatest mysteries of ancient Egypt. Jack finished reading the sign and gasped. Richard Newington was the name of the lady met on a mission in Cambodia. Mr. Newington had been kidnapped by a man with gold teeth who was seeking the power of an ancient shimmer necklace. Jack had worked with her daughter Kate to locate Rachel and stop the man from taking the necklace away. After Jack saved Rachel's life, she had given her a clue about his brother Max, had been helping her protect something in Egypt. But one day both the objects and Max disappeared. Soon afterwards, Rachel had been sent to Cambodia. After reading this, Jack was pretty sure that his brother had been involved in protecting the diadem. After all, the facts of the story seemed to fit. Plus, it was the kind of job that a GVF agent should be asked to do. Jack, said a whisper behind him. It was one of the parents helpless. Mr. Marshall wants everyone downstairs. Okay, Jack hurried down the stairs, back to the lobby. The got there, saw one of the teams waving a fancy book in the air. Rachel and Charlie stood beside, their sour look on their face. Yes, we didn't win, said Jack, walking over to his friends. It's all because of you, sulked Rachel. Mr. Marshall said that we had to return as a team. If you'd been here, you would have won. Sorry, said Jack. Sorry, said Jack. I got distracted. Charlie and Richard stomped off. Richard looked over his shoulder and Jack and shouted, Hope it was worth it. It was, Jack whispered to himself.